Coming up on Network Africa. The bodies of 28 people found in Burkina Faso's town of Nuna. Metro and bus traffic paralyzed in Tunisia due to a transport strike. Plus, when wildlife goes wild, herds of elephants destroy houses, granaries, and crops in central Mozambique. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. We begin in Burkina Faso today, where authorities are investigating circumstances leading to the death of 28 people whose bodies were found in the northwestern town of Nuna. A statement from the government says the bodies were discovered on the night of December 30. It condemned the unacceptable violence and also says this drama occurs at a time when Burkina Faso has initiated an operation of mobilization of the whole people for unity of action in the fight against terrorism. Prosecutors say the victims were killed by gunfire, but there's no indication so far of the possible perpetrators nor the motive for the attacks. The authorities have called for calm pending the outcome of the investigation. One rights group claims the dead were civilians who had been targeted by a civil defense force recently launched by the government to help fight an Islamist insurgency. There's been no confirmation of this. Burkina Faso, currently in the middle of a battle against Islamist insurgency, has already displaced 2 million people in the country. Well, staying with Burkina Faso, the government has reiterated its commitment to restoring constitutional rule within 18 months following a decision by the U.S. to drop it from its preferential trade program. That's the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA for short. The American Trade Representative Office says Burkina Faso has failed to meet the requirements of AGOA as its military government violated the constitution. The country experienced 2 military coups last year, sparked by the authorities' inability to control and intensifying Islamist insurgency. AGOA gives sub-Saharan African countries duty-free access to the U.S. as long as they meet certain eligibility requirements, including progress towards democracy. Let's begin. Public affairs analyst Oluwaseyi Adeyemo joins us from here in Lagos virtually. As you can see, Mr. Adeyemo, a happy New Year to you, and thanks for joining us on Network Africa.
Happy New Year, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and we're starting off the year with, this a story about, the Burkina Faso being taken off the list of AGOA countries. And we've only just come off the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit, which was not attended by Burkina Faso and other African countries where there's been military takeover. I mean, the U.S. had said the leaders from those countries were not invited to the summit in Washington. But the U.S. government did say they would communicate somehow, with these countries, their policies and decisions. So what do you make of this decision now to take Burkina Faso off AGOA list?
Amarachi, let's first of all appreciate the fact that in all of the problem that is besetting the whole world, the Americans, the U.S., have been magnanimous enough to continue to support us in Africa. And obviously, they see the fact that there is great opportunity in doing business with us in Africa. But I believe that they are responsible enough to understand that you cannot continue to give support or money to certain people who refuse to do what is right on their part. Yes, they see opportunity. It is time for Africa to lead the way, as it were, as regards doing a lot of things to the rest of the world. But we certainly cannot expect them to continue to support us if we show sense of irresponsibility. In my opinion, there was too cool in Burkina Faso last year, and that is not good enough. We cannot encourage a people who are unable to settle rape or whatever a problem they have within themselves, without resorting to coup d'etat.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure whether the U.S. is a huge trade partner for Burkina Faso, but what could the country lose by being taken off this list? The military junta already proposed an 18-month constitutional return to constitutional order in the country to ECOWAS, which is still, I think, considering that, or they rejected it. Doesn't that count for something, at least, to show that they're working towards democracy being restored in the country?
Yeah, they're working towards it, but like I said, there's a need for discipline. There's a need for good signal to be sent to the rest of Africa. Because truth of the matter is, as much as there are no free other countries like ours, I mean, the signals that we're not serious with what we're doing is very, very clear to the rest of the world. And so I believe that the world monitors, that's where I refer to the US, should do whatever they can to kind of send signals to the rest of us that, look, if you don't know what you're doing and you take the wrong step, we would stand up and make sure that we cut you to size. And like you said, I mean, if there's nothing to lose, Burkina Faso, I believe that the fact that they're going to be losing the opportunity to trading with the US, duty free is a lot to lose. The US, all of us are gaining by trading with them. And Burkina Faso is stuck on that list. And the fact that they have been removed from that list means a lot to them. We're generally an important continent, Africa, particularly West Africa. And so we cannot afford, Burkina Faso cannot afford to be removed from that list. And they're going to lose a lot. I mean, not having the support of the US. Look at Ukraine. I mean, the fact that they're able to stand up to Russia at this time is because of the support they've gotten from the US. So no country in the world can afford to be disconnected from the support they will get from the US.
Well, I agree with that. What sort of signal does this send out to other trade partners? For example, France, which I think has already condemned the coups in Burkina Faso, but has not announced it will be ceasing trade relations with the country. And then, other countries as well that are still relating with Burkina Faso. For example, Mali has been isolated by many ECOWAS countries as thanks to ECOWAS' decision to isolate the country and boycott relations with Mali, but not the same treatment towards Burkina Faso.
Truth of the matter is, like I said earlier, the US is like the monitor in the house. They're the ones who dictate the way things go. Now, if other countries see that by not trading with the US, it will affect them, they would naturally toe that same line. I mean, French or France are people who were the colonial masters, and obviously they would always want to protect their colonial children. But for whatever it's worth, I believe strongly that it is not good for Burkina Faso, and the rest of the trade partners would naturally see this as a very bad signal, and they'd be likely to toe in that line at the end of the day.
I wanted to get your thoughts on this story also that we reported. 28 bodies being found at the town of Noon. There's so much speculation about what could have happened. They were shot dead. It could have been the result of insurgency and all of that. What do you think?
I think it's unfortunate. I mean, that's the way I want to put it. You see, the truth of the matter is African leaders have not done too well as regards managing our lives, our autonomy, our security. I think they've done a very, very bad job, because it's unfortunate that at the end of the day, this kind of thing is being allowed to happen at a time like this. Yes, there will be stories and all of that, but when you have militias, when you have Islamic jihadists coming into country and all sorts of things are happening, then you would expect anything to happen at any time. And it is unfortunate, because for me, that is a direct signal of the failure of leadership. And I hope and pray strongly that they would quickly, I'm now talking about the leaders now, would quickly do whatever they have to do in 18 months that they have promised, and lead government, and will have a reasonable and responsible, democratically elected government come into place and do what is right for our people. Because when these things happen, whether West Africa, South Africa, East Africa, I feel a sense of pain directly because we're all Africans, and I mean, our stories seem to be the same. We're not doing well as regards leadership generally as a people.
We're not doing well generally, even as regards insurgency. So many countries in West Africa still struggling with that. Mr. Adeyemo, always a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's head on now to Tunisia, where public transport in the capital, Tunis, has ground to a halt after employees of the state transport company began a strike on Monday over delays to salary payments. Hundreds of workers staged a protest outside the Prime Minister's office. Industrial action highlights problems facing public companies as the government of President Kais Saied grapples with its worst financial crisis. A powerful UGTT union is to hold another two-day strike involving transport workers in late January. It says the action will be in protest against what it calls the government's marginalization of public companies. Here's an example of when wildlife goes wild. Herds of elephants are reported to have destroyed houses, granaries and crops in central Mozambique. Sofala province officials say the damages occurred while the animals were desperately searching for water as their regular sources are completely dried up. They say the elephants have been wrecking everything in their path, and some families have had to abandon their homes and move elsewhere. Elephants encroaching on areas of human settlement are an increasing problem in Mozambique, and they're leaving conservation areas in search of food and water. A national environmental body says nearly 100 people have been killed by wild animals in the past 2 years. And we're still reporting New Year celebrations. This time it's with children at the Little Saints Orphanage home in Akowanjo area of Lagos. During a party celebrating the start of the year, the children said they're happy to be alive and are opening the year on a good note, excited about the many good opportunities the year holds for them. Our correspondent Timothy Crown Aderibibe has more.
It's dance time for these children of the Little Saints Orphanage home in Akowanjo, Lagos State. This is how they choose to celebrate the New Year 2023. It's game time for the children who look happy to see another year. Aside from the game and dance, there's enough food and drink to go round. They're joined in the celebration by a well-wisher who considers the happy time with the children as a source of personal joy.
God knows that it's what makes me happy. When I come here, I see the children, they're happy. How many people remember them that they too, they need to do parties? You remember your own children at home. You have children party at home, but who remembers the orphans? But I don't have parties at home. I tell my children, if you want New Year party, follow me to the orphanage. That's where we are doing it. And that's how I've done it for several years now.
Mrs. Mayowa Ikuforiji is wife of former Speaker of the Lagos State House of Assembly. It's been more than 6 years that she's organized the annual event.
It's what I love doing. I believe that we should never forget the orphans too if we're doing anything. I've always loved giving back to orphans, to widows as well. When I was praying that God, I want money to be able to do this thing, I said I was willing to sell a bracelet if that's what it would take for me to still be with these children this year. And you can't believe it, the following day, somebody sent me money.
The management of the home seizes the opportunity to invite others, individual groups, to find ways of putting smiles on the faces of people with less privileges.
I advise them to come and put smile, put joy in the life of these children. When they go back to school, they normally tell their friends in school that we enjoy New Year party. They come to our mommy, Mrs. Ikuforiji, come here to celebrate New Year party for them. So they are so happy.
The party continues for the children who look happy and say they are grateful to be alive.
All right, let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, up.
Timothy Crown at Aderibibe, Channels Television News.
So glad they got a chance to celebrate. Still ahead on Network Africa. 50-year-old Kamal Bukenta keeps the family business alive while staying in touch with one of the world's most loved sports, probably his as well. football. Join us again. Welcome back to the program. Now, in his final year in office, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari performed a number of obligations outside the country. Nigeria was present at most international events and joined voices with bodies like the Economic Community of West African States on decisions regarding political stability. But Nigeria was jolted into events on the global stage through the start of the war in Ukraine. Here's a review of Nigeria's foreign affairs in the year 2022. The year 2022 was one of personal and shuttle diplomacy by President Muhammadu Buhari and members of his administration. Entering the new year, 2022, no one predicted a war in Eastern Europe would create a security situation for African students, many of whom were taking advantage of cheaper education in Ukraine.
Because the last explosion that happened took place close to my house. Funny enough, I was just in my kitchen trying to prepare something. I saw how my house shook. Like I ran away from the kitchen, and it's been very traumatizing.
As the war progressed, calls for the evacuation of Nigerian students grew louder. And by the beginning of March, following negotiations between foreign ministers of Ukraine and Nigeria, and through the help of a number of non-governmental organizations, evacuations began for the Nigerian students. While scores of them returned straight to the country, a number of them sought to continue their education in neighboring European countries, such as Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, and even England. And as West Africa's political crisis worsened with another coup in Mali, a coup in Burkina Faso, in Guinea, and an attempted coup in Guinea-Bissau, President Buhari jetted off to Accra, Ghana for an ECOWAS emergency meeting aimed at helping to restore democratic rule in the countries. ECOWAS decided to isolate Mali economically, calling on member states to boycott relations with them as well. Former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan, in his role as ECOWAS Special Envoy, spent most of 2022 on this subject with limited success. In the month of June, the president was in Portugal for talks with his Portuguese counterpart, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, and participated in the United Nations Ocean Conference. Both countries also signed as many as 10 agreements and memoranda of understanding in air travel, political consultations, diplomatic training, and others. President Buhari was also one of the leaders attending the Commonwealth meeting in Kigali, Rwanda. On the sidelines, he held bilaterals with other Commonwealth leaders, including the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and representatives of the Nigerian community in Rwanda. Some analysts wondered aloud about the Commonwealth's continued relevance in today's modern world.
There are more advantages, there are more pros than cons. And being a committee of nations of that magnitude, people that we have identical issues with, like rule of law, human rights, British judicial system, cultural values, the language, the parliament, all that brings us together.
Representing the president at the Queen's funeral was Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo. As the year wound down, the president attended his last UN General Assembly in New York, where he vowed to entrench a process of free, fair, transparent and credible elections through which Nigerians select leaders of their choice.
One of the enduring legacies I would like to leave is to entrench a process of free, fair and transparent, credible election through which Nigerians elect their choice.
President Buhari would make another visit to the U.S., this time to attend the second U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit in Washington, D.C., where he also talked on the side with President Joe Biden. Nigeria would go on to sign the Artemis Accords, a series of non-binding multilateral agreements concerning space between the United States and other governments. Nigeria and Rwanda became the first signatories. The Democratic Republic of Congo's last surviving World War II veteran, Corporal Albert Kunyuku, will be buried next Friday, according to the producer of the film about his life, Jose Adolfi Voto. Corporal Kunyuku, who was born on May 20, 1922, died on November 25th last year at the age of 100. He was among 25,000 soldiers of the Belgian Congo Army, La Force Publique, deployed to fight alongside Belgian troops during the conflict. He was honored last June by Belgium's King Philippe at an elaborate ceremony during the monarch's first visit to the African country. We can now tell you the really interesting story of 50-year-old Kamal Boukenta, whose love for football sees him spending his days at the La Clinique du Ballon, making handmade leather soccer balls in the Moroccan city of Marrakesh. Kamal inherited the craft from his parents, who were uniquely the last in the Arab world to make special balls like this. Let's take a look.
In a small craft shop in the leather-working neighborhood of Marrakesh, Kamal Boukenta meticulously stitches a leather soccer ball as part of his family business at La Clinique du Ballon, French for the clinic ball. The 50-year-old ball maker said he inherited the expertise of making soccer and rugby balls from his parents, who started the business in 1965. The craft of leather soccer balls, Boukenta explained, came from Europe and Latin America.
The idea arrived to Morocco probably in the 1950s years. At the time, there were Moroccans who made balls, but this was a very long time ago. There are no more left, and my family has specialized in the making of balls since the 1960s.
Boukenta believes La Clinique du Ballon is the last in the Arab world and almost the Muslim world.
The soccer ball I am making is an Argentinian ball manufactured in 1920, not far from Cordoba. It was invented by two neighbors in 1920, and it was first used in 1928 Olympic Games. Then the second time in the first World Cup in 1930. It was the second ball of the second half of the 1930 World Cup final match between Uruguay and Argentina.
Boukenta says he remakes famous balls as well as his own designs. Finishing a ball could take him any time between 2 days up to 2 weeks, between manufacturing, sewing and maintenance.
And we're in Kenya now, where a streaming and payment platform called Hustle Sasa is making waves with business owners and content creators. As they use the digital app to share their works, Hustle Sasa is a digital app officially launched in November 2021. Allows creators to stream music or sell branded merchandise, concert tickets, food, fashion, and other services on their mobile phones.
In pink trousers and a matching puffer jacket, Grammy-nominated Kenyan musician Biana Melusa gyrates on stage as he sings to a bank of swaying fans, many capturing the moment on their mobile phones. When the curtains drop on the concert in Nairobi, Melusa keeps making connections and profit through a digital streaming and payment platform, which he co-founded to help artists recover from revenues lost to the coronavirus lockdown. Artists or vendors sell their products directly to the market with no setup cost or monthly fees and receive payment instantly via bank card or mobile money, avoiding expensive commissions charged by some apps.
It takes a while on those platforms to build because even how they're billing it is disadvantaged to East Africa. Our region has one of the lowest payout rates in the world from other streaming platforms. But on Hustle Sasa, you're getting value for money in real time.
Glenna Jiwani, who owns the fashion boutique Pink Savannah in the capital Nairobi, said it has allowed her to expand her business online, keep tabs on stocks and sales.
I didn't even have a website, but now it's so easy with your phone. Put in your product, sign up, put in your products, put in your delivery address, and once you make a sale online, the delivery guy will come within 20 minutes. And there you go, you've made a sale.
Yaba, another Kenyan musician, said the app streaming service allows him to make more money and to connect directly to his audience.
A musician who is fighting his way to the top when it comes to streaming. It's not like the other platforms.
Alusa said he's in talks to spread operations across the continent from Ghana to South Africa.
This is where the curtains fall on the program today. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Ibani.